In the heat of combat, no warrior is smart enough to sharpen their blade. You get ready long before hostilities break out. In peace and quiet, you train. Before you are ever asked to use it, you have mastered your weapon. Thus, why not use the same method to train your mind? Before raising questions, most people wait for a crisis, betrayal, or loss to occur. Then they will attempt to gather strength. They seek clarity only after that. A lack of training makes one's mind as sharp as a blade in a bloodbath, and by that point the storm has already arrived. Wet grassland. Poisonous, harmful, lethal, not to other people but to yourself. Somewhere in your spirit is a weapon, and no one ever showed you how to wield it. Behave, they said. Be bold, conform, avoid confrontation, obey, and awaken. Therefore, you stow your blade away. You turned off your gut feeling. Your instincts were dulled by you. You passed up power for peace. No lasting calm, the calm that extinguishes your flames. However, you remain a fierce fighter in your core. Now is the moment to train like an athlete, since your mind is in a war zone where each and every one of one's thoughts is a weapon. It will do damage if not sharpened. It will aimlessly wander if not directed. And if you don't learn to control it, it will rebel. Minds aren't necessarily adversaries, but they also aren't necessarily allies. It serves as a forge, a tool, and a force. It needs shaping, discipline, direction, and above all else, respect, much like a blade. Because an unconscious soul wielding a powerful mind is like a toddler holding a sword. No amount of yelling can subdue your mind. That group, sitting motionless in the flames until they show themselves, is how you train them. You give in to every anxiety, fixation, and externalized voice that isn't truly yours. You remain unfazed. Your observation is precise and devoid of judgment. The first cut is consciousness, and the second is clarity. The most devastating blow is silence. The fighter remains still. He reacts. Without light, he doesn't writhe. He looks into it. He trains alone with his sword so that he might use it in mayhem. When you become exactly like them, if you want to succeed in this world, make it a habit to obey orders rather than cave into pressure. For the benefit of your spirit, not its destruction. To bow down before truth, not dread. The truth must be spoken. You've been training yourself mentally. You run away because it tells you something to be afraid of. You withdraw because it informs you what's not feasible. You give up on being yourself because it tells you what other people think. You turn into a sacrificial lamb for an unskilled spirit. But that's all. Now that you're back in charge, the actual training can start. Certainly not the pleasant type. In a way that shapes you. You need to free your mind from shackles of outdated thinking. You must dismantle the notions you once held in high esteem. To overcome your natural tendency to second-guess yourself, you must train yourself to believe in yourself more firmly. You need to decide who's in charge now. Who you are. Nothing at all. Not your hurts, mistakes, or fears counts. Leadership is about you and your ability to master yourself, not other people. A warrior's goal is not global dominance. The only region he wants to rule is the one that counts. The mental realm, the domain of ideas, the arena of conflict, the sacred site of focus, the crucible of personal formation. His training isn't for battle, but for the stillness that follows, for the reverberation of his own honesty, for the serenity that comes from having endured the crucible. So, practice mental training the way a warrior practices swordsmanship, with unwavering focus, discipline, and purpose. You can't expect to reach your goals if you limit yourself to what you've been taught in the classroom. Most people are fantasizing about establishing empires with imaginary control of students. They never sit quietly, even when they desire clarity. They avoid facing the internal conflict, even though they desire peace. They desire power, yet they never wield a weapon. However, you stand out from the crowd because you have persisted in reading, listening, and being present. I can tell you are prepared because of that. Get ready to hone your skills, strike, and reawaken your sense of self. Being free from being a prisoner of feeling, a master of intellect, a blacksmith of meaning, a sovereign soul, and not a victim of identity wandering. Armed with an unquenchable inner fire and a sharp intellect. Work out regardless of how much it hurts, particularly if it aches. Because strain exposes uncut steel, and pain is that. You, on the other hand, are skinned steel. But that's conditional on your providing evidence. Commence each day with a routine. Instead of being distracted or distracted by noise, just be present. Rule over your mind. Keep your focus. Focus on getting ready, not on performing. The moment of betrayal, loss, rejection, etc. will inevitably arrive. Do not freak out in the midst of the mayhem. Inhale deeply. You will evaluate. You've been practicing for this, so you'll hit with precision and confidence, both physically and psychologically. Because of this, a warrior is unbeatable. Quietness, concentration, inner calmness, not anger, strength, or domination. A kind of stillness that begs to be heard. The stare that pierces the very essence of a person. Someone whose mind is already sovereign the moment they step foot in a room doesn't require an introduction. Their vitality is already. Conveys more than just words. You are not watching a performance. This is the person you transform into when you make an effort to be serious. Make sure to exercise. When no one is looking, train. Upon the voice's reappearance, begin training. Work out even when life gets in the way. Even when you feel like giving up, push through it. Plus, your resolve becomes stronger with each refusal to compromise your principles. As you become more grounded in truth, you draw nearer to the version of yourself that is impervious to manipulation, silence, and breaking. Stay at the gym till your thoughts harmonize. You will not be able to break free from the shackles of silence unless making a decision becomes second nature. Simply put, if you're constantly seeking out background noise to divert your attention from your tasks, you will never achieve greatness. Though it shapes your unseen architecture, the mental routines that you perform in the dark is the actual labor. That's something that most people would never tell you. The most powerful fighters never shout. Neither of them brags. They can win you over without trying. They represent a certain, uncommon, fashioned by sacred repetition, loneliness, and pain. That is something that cannot be purchased. You can't make it up. Truly, that has to be fake. Because fighting does not shape a man into a warrior. In that place, he is exposed. The peaceful mornings, when he gets up with self-control, are his making. By putting mastery ahead of comfort, by resisting the attraction of mediocrity, gossip, and approval, by fortifying his mind, not to shut out the world, but to stay unmoved by its constant motions, he achieves this. Shift your thinking in this way, and reactivity will leave you. You will learn to distinguish between fact and emotion. The day will come when you no longer exchange your tranquility for the anarchy of another. Your value will no longer be negotiated as if it were for sale, since all of a sudden, you have clarity. Mastery of deception is visible to you. The patterns become apparent just before they recur. Even before it's cloaked as an opportunity, you spot the trap. Instead of viewing yourself as a fraud, you view yourself as a powerful, independent entity that does not need anybody's approval to exist. That is the warrior's mind, not influenced by injuries, not propelled by affirmation, but lead by example. Moreover, what is insight? It's like seeing something that doesn't exist just yet and making your way toward it as if it were already there. A vision is a moving prophecy. This is walking on faith. Problems can't even find a way to breathe amid such profound clarity. The typical person's thoughts are all over the place because they are attempting to be good at everything. Being anxious all the time because you're striving to please everyone while actually becoming nobody in an effort to escape pain. The trained mind, though, finds it easy, not complicated. Not complicated. Approval isn't necessary. It must be in the correct place. Noise is not redirected by it. It is receptive to truth. It remains motionless. Accurately, it reacts. And, when the fighter has clear vision, each stride is sacred. Every action takes on a purpose. Each second is a weapon in the fight against aversion. Desire authority? Then eliminate the self-satisfied version of yourself. Every time fear takes a different form, it causes that delay that negotiates your calling. You can get by with less time. You should be more specific. No, you should be encouraged more. Do better with self-control. Additional affirmation is unnecessary. You must prove your worth by taking action. The blade is sharpened by action. What keeps it prepared is repetition. Waiting till you're in the mood is a surefire way to fail. Why? Because your emotions should not be your compass. You can use them as indicators. A warrior's soul, not his ephemeral emotions, dictates his actions. Consequently, you can't find serenity amongst people who are fighting an internal struggle. Get out of systems that are made to keep you sleeping and stop chasing happiness. Put an end to entrusting your power to brainless, disorganized individuals. Let go. Reclaim everything. Bear the storm like a sword. Restrained, firmly established intent. Embrace the anarchy. However, you should guard your trained mind as if its very survival relied on it. So, you should not allow it entry to your precious sanctuary. It all starts and finishes in the mind. The things you build, the loves you attract, the doors that open, and the empires that rise from your spirit. Okay, I'll ask you again. Do you? Polishing it or allowing it to corrode? Is truth being fed to it, or a distraction starving it? Do you intend to let it become wild and unruly? Is it more like a master blacksmith working with a good blade? Simply put, your training will be put to the test at some point. Plus, there won't be any time to get ready at that very second. The only thing that matters is if you're prepared. Apprehensive about speaking. Unprepared to demonstrate. Unprepared to satisfy. But I am prepared to stand. Get ready to choose order over confusion. Deciding on a purpose over a pleasure. Being prepared to. Stay true to who you are at your core, and keep going even when things get tough. The edge is there. There you have it. That is the mindset of a fighter who has been taught to change rather than destroy. At that point, your mind will no longer be a weapon for harming other people, but rather for slicing reality from fiction. Whatever entity benefits from your bewilderment will be frightened of you. You'll be able to enter rooms and change the temperature silently. Because true strength emanates rather than shouts its presence. Clarity emanates from a trained intellect. Nobody will get it. They will misinterpret your composure for hubris. If you're obsessive, your quiet is a sign of weakness. Make it clear that you are not seeking understanding. Becoming unmistakable is your purpose here. Truth searchers are not rewarded in this world. The ability to change one's shape is rewarded by it. It desires that you be malleable, predictable, and adjustable. Mind training, however, makes you completely different from the rest. There is no escaping your roots. You know where you are? You just can't be touched. No, it's not that you're always fighting. It's just that you're never required to. On to, you have already thought 10 steps ahead of time. The real you has already been shown to your spirit. Your gut feeling doesn't need proof. It is the first step. Responsiveness is the domain of the unskilled mind. Strategy is the home of the trained intellect. At the first indication of trouble, one gives up. The opposite takes it in, adjusts its course, and then hits again, this time with more precision. That is the distinction. Pain is inevitable for the trained intellect. It becomes useful. Someone has lied to you and taught you that power is about resisting, that you must. Needs to become tough. No, real power is being present, not hiding behind a facade, not putting on a show, but having an unwavering inner calmness that declares, I am who I am. If you desire freedom, then control your thoughts until they follow your spirit. And know this, discipline isn't punishment, it's devotion. Devotion to the self-respecting version of yourself that lies beyond every justification, delay, and comforting act of disorder. You train because there is a kingdom within you, and when you're done, it will bring you freedom, allowing crooks to reside in it rent-free. You train because the next generation requires a guide, not merely tales told before bed about aspirations you were too scared to pursue. You train because a part of you remembers who you were before the world told you to settle. Otherwise, you forget, shrink, and deteriorate while feigning a smile. However, if you train, you reawaken. You recall your edge, your calling, and the realization that you were never destined to be domesticated. You were meant to build, to safeguard, to penetrating the world's fog and gracefully navigating fire. So now, silence the noise, break the lies, stand before the mirror, gaze into your own eyes, and ask with sacred fire in your voice, what kind of mind am I creating? Is it a stronghold or a penal colony? Something like a sword or a shackle, a fulcrum or a link? Why? Because your mind is constantly shaping you to be great or to be average. No middle ground exists. Adapt or perish. One can either sharpen or dull. You could take the lead or join the voices that did not originally belong to you. Accordingly, get going right away. Tomorrow is not going to work. It won't be after the next setback. Never again will you be inspired. No, because there is no time to waste. The battlefield never rests, and neither is your potential. Mind training is similar to sword training. Not only to win the war, but to become the kind of soul who no longer fears it. Some part of you frightens everyone. I don't think it's your goal. You haven't achieved success. Your self-assurance is lacking. It's that you refuse to downsize. This is the way you're no longer embarrassed to be yourself. Those rare moments when you enter a room without trying too hard to be accepted. The manner in which you ceased seeking authorization to exert influence. Since most people don't dread your vulnerability, that is what frightens them. They are afraid of your candor. Their hidden truths are revealed by clarity. Their betrayal becomes clear when they are found guilty. You become a reflection in just being here. And when they peer into it, they fail to see your presence. They realize how much better off they would have been if they hadn't been so quick to give up. Nobody is too. Very much. You came into this world because someone dared to be less. The world will do its best to make you believe you're haughty, overbearing, overly dramatic, or too emotional when you hold that truth deep within. You're bringing back all the parts of myself that I let go of, but that's not what they actually mean. For the most part, folks don't do anything extraordinary. They hold back from fully embracing their identity, not due to a lack of skill or time, but rather out of fear of what they might lose. Since the minute you make a firm decision, you get dangerous. A danger to the circle of friends who become close by shared averageness. Your potential lover, who is terrified of your strength, sees you as a danger. A danger to those close to you, who could only love you when you kept to yourself and were easy to control. There's a cost to greatness. You can't blend in with it. You can't put on a social mask and engage in small talk because of it. Instead of putting a word of consolation in your mouth, it puts a word of command. They avoid it because of that. They say you're intense because of that. They're talking behind your back since you were thrust into leadership roles without your consent. Truthful leadership, on the other hand, unsettles the illusion around which most people have constructed their whole lives. When your spirit triumphs over your fears, you will experience euphoria. Nobody's feeling it. It's here to stay. The rebellious spirit within you that would not remain hidden is unleashed. At first, it manifests as an inaudible pain, an unspoken yearning, an agitation that your professional life has failed to allay, a raging fire that no amount of can satisfy a relationship. Later on, it bursts into flames. This life you've been leading, this acting, faking, bargaining your fire for scraps of approval, is not living, you realize when you wake up. From that point on, you're transformed. You give up on attempting to find your voice. You give up attempting to clarify. If you want to be tolerated, you need to quit trying to be small. When you realize you were never meant to be liked, you start to walk differently. You were supposed to make an impression that would be felt far and wide. Mindset isn't just a matter of keeping a positive mental attitude. Removing the mental blocks that held you back is the key. Who instructed you to be modest and to blend in? Who said being ambitious was a sign of selfishness? Who said that punishment was bad for you? Was desiring more a sign of greed? It was haughtiness, wasn't it? You didn't sound like that. It was a badge of honor passed down through generations. Generational terror was at work there. The speaker represented a culture that values conformity and views independence as a social vice. When one's consciousness finally awakens, though, it begins to blaze through. any delusion that formerly diminished your worth. Everything starts to seem questionable. Sometimes I say yes when I really mean no. My friendships are draining, so why do I maintain them? I feel like screaming, so why do I crack a smile? A more profound reality emerges from behind every inquiry. You are the truth, not the truth they told you. Once it rises, there's no turning back. Your potential cannot be unseen. Recognizing your strengths is impossible. Pretending to be asleep when your spirit is shouting with clarity is impossible. Faith does not provide solace. Faith is conflict. It is the struggle between your past self and your potential future self. This happens repeatedly. Choosing to believe in the self that is still being built is something you have to do every morning when you wake up. The person they haven't encountered just yet. That part of yourself that you have yet to fully trust. Belief, however, becomes power when one ceases to seek approval from others. Why? Because once it's evident, most people will believe you. They will celebrate with you once it is safe to do so. Your spirit, though, longs for more. Having faith is more important than waiting for outcomes. Proceed prior to evidence. As the onlookers draw near, stand tall. Since faith isn't intended to be a byproduct, lead is its intended purpose. You will lose followers when you lead with your beliefs. The truth, nevertheless, will emerge. You become a threat when you are clear. To be right is not the point. Being unmistakable is key. More opinions aren't necessary in our world. More individuals who are secure in their identities and will not budge from their stance are needed. It doesn't yell, but clarity says, I know what I want. I know what I'm here to build, and I will not dilute that for your comfort. It doesn't grovel. It doesn't elucidate. It moves. And when you move with clarity, you become unshakable. Because those who are unmoved by external chaos become the storm's anchors. People feel it. They can't put their finger on it. They simply feel safer in your presence because you aren't confused about who you are. Your vision isn't a fantasy, a daydream, a mood board, or a trend. Rather, it is the architecture of your soul, downloading in silence, built in. You don't make vision, you recall it. You recall the part of yourself that understood this life had purpose beyond conformity, monotony, and covert desperation posing as achievement. And when that vision ensnares you, really ensnares you, you cease to wait. You cease to wait for clarity from those who have never been clear. You cease to wait for the world to acknowledge your vision, validate it, and stand firm. Advice from those who have never taken action. You quit waiting for approval from a group that is afraid of their own greatness. Because, when vision becomes clear, hesitation goes away. You start behaving differently, speaking differently, and seeing things in a different light. Instead of chasing goals, you build realities. You won't find purpose in a book, from a mentor, from society, from a title, from recognition. You'll find purpose in the intersection of pain and refusal. Refusing to repeat the cycle, staying asleep, and refusing to quit. To surrender your life to systems designed to deplete you. Finding purpose isn't a magical process. It's a process of repeated choices. And choosing purpose requires sacrifice. You will lose loved ones, comfort, and the ability to blend in. But in that loss, you will become a radiant light that cannot be ignored. You will become the type of person who walks with such conviction that others feel convicted around you. Not because you preach, but because you become everything they were afraid to be. You don't have to. It's not about self-punishment or restrictions. It's about respecting the future you, the vision you carry, and the responsibility of being awake in a sleeping world. Discipline says, I don't need to feel like it. I don't need perfect conditions. I don't need external motivation. I have chosen myself, and that is enough. Living with purpose means you don't have to explain because your actions speak louder than words could ever express. The majority of people fail to grasp this concept. They desire outcomes without constraints, a legacy without work, and independence without struggle. However, freedom is not bestowed. It is acquired by consistently deciding to remain true to one's identity. With each self-promising act, With each aligned decision, with each refusal to compromise one's vision for temporary ease, one becomes unstoppable, not due to their actions, but to the person they became as a result. Flexibility is not a sign of weakness, but rather a strength. You're no longer the same person you were 6 months ago, not because you changed, but because you remembered more of who you are. You shed the need to be right, the desire to be understood, and the version of yourself that was built in reaction to fear. Now you no longer need the world to adjust for you. You adjust for nothing and no one except yourself. That is the mark of the elite. The average person clings to their identity like armor, terrified of shedding what no longer fits. But you evolve in silence and emerge unrecognizable. You are becoming constantly, consciously, unapologetically. Your identity is not a costume, a name tag you wear at parties, your job title, your personality type, your history, or anything else. It is the core of who you are. The power that moves mountains silently and speaks without words is the power that terrifies those who still crave predictability. This is who I am, but what they really mean is, this is who I became so I wouldn't be hurt again, rather than meeting themselves when no one is watching and nothing needs to be proven. Most people meet the version of themselves that has been molded by fear, crafted in the shadows of other people's expectations, refined by trauma, and hardened by survival. Armor may protect you, but it also stops you from feeling and from connecting with the world around you. Stifles your freedom. It stops you from loving so completely that nothing stays hidden. Because if you want to know and be yourself, you have to be willing to burn the old script. That script says you were small and acceptable and nothing more. Your identity is not fixed. It is forged in silence and fire, and by saying, "No more lies," you can forge a new one. When you get to that point, I'd rather be by myself in honesty than worshipped in illusion. When your old self doesn't fit anymore and your new self isn't fully formed, that's when revolution happens. Not the outward one, but the internal revolt. It's quiet. It doesn't always look like glory. Sometimes it looks like sobbing on the floor at 3 in the morning. Sometimes it looks like giving up a life you built to survive. Sometimes it looks like leaving behind those who loved your facade more than your reality. But underneath it all is freedom. Freedom from deceit. Freedom from acting. From the version of yourself that never frightened anyone because it never told the truth. Being great is lonely at first because it agitates those who have lived in fear their entire lives. Your clarity messes with their confusion, and your confidence messes with their self-abandonment. They won't say it, but they'll distance themselves. They'll say you've changed, and you have. You've stopped apologizing for being light, and you've stopped hiding your fire so others could feel warm in their own. Your greatness terrifies people because it cannot be controlled, because it doesn't beg, and because it makes them question everything they settled for. However, you didn't come here to be understood. You came here to become. And now that you've stopped shrinking, you're a lighthouse. Not everyone wants to be a lighthouse, but those who are prepared will find you. You arrived here to shatter the mold, not become a part of it. And when you fully grasp that there's no turning back, you won't stoop to their level of acceptance. You won't water down your principles to fit in. You won't water down your truth to be tolerated. Instead, you'll stand tall, heart open, spine unbent. And when people ask why you defy the rules, you'll smile, because you finally understood that the rules were never meant for your greatness anyway. And now you don't require the crown. You are the kingdom. You are. You weren't meant to fit in. You were built to lead the way out. And this is the moment you stop waiting. You stop waiting for signs, validation, for the stars to align, for the timing to be perfect, for someone to say, "Now you're ready." You realize no one is coming to crown you because the truth has already been remembered. You don't need the throne. You are the fire. You embody your own authority. And from this moment forward, no one gets to define you again. This isn't about getting somewhere. It's about remembering how you were meant to be. It's a holy rebellion against the voices within you that told you to stay small, a rejection of inheriting limitations because they were spoken by those you loved, and a blazing of every false identity that made you feel uneasy. The throne you have been anticipating was never theirs to give. You were always the one in charge, the one who had permission, the one who had arrived, and the prophecy that had been hidden beneath your own hesitation regarding reclaiming your design. You weren't meant to exist in a shallow, affirmation-based world or participate in meaningless rituals of belonging. Rather, you were designed for depth, disruption, and transcendence. Those who dread the unknown will always be afraid of you because you embody it. You embodied the raw, relentless, and unapologetic truth of being fully awake, which is exactly what they were taught to avoid. And so, yes, your greatness will terrify those who have traded their dreams for comfort. It will terrify those who have traded their dreams for comfort. Startle those who find meaning in numbers rather than in the depths of meaning. It will terrify those who equate stability with stagnation and those who are afraid of the unknown. But I say, let them be afraid and question. Stay in the shallows while you dive into the oceans that most people never venture into. Your purpose is not to be pleasant, but to be free. And freedom, well, it has never been peaceful, easy, or asked for praise. It has always appeared as flames, deconstructing the illusion so that something genuine can take its place. And now you are rising, not because you're prepared, but because preparedness is a miss for those who are still seeking approval. You're rising because remaining small is now too expensive. The gap between your true self and your past self is now too wide. You're rising because greatness isn't something you seek. It's something you finally stop fighting against. And when you're rising, you let go of your old story. You bury it. Just like the skin you shed, you lay it down and thank it for protecting you. The world doesn't need another conformist, predictable, performance-trained shell of a person. What the world needs is you, the authentic, raw, electric, divine force of nature that remembers its origins. You're not here to explain yourself, but to express yourself. You're not here to be tolerated, but to be witnessed. You're not here to blend in, but to be the signal. So, go ahead and unleash your inner power. Soak it all in. Let go of the past. Let go of false identities. And let the fear scream before it dies down. For what is rising within you now? Truth, clarity, sovereignty, not ego, image, or bravado, but truth. And nothing, not a system, not rejection, not doubt, not even a storm, can ever strip you of that. Your greatness terrifies them because it doesn't seek approval, but it becomes, and you know it as well.